Today's guests are Chris Bennett, the owner of Bennett Build, Kristina Abrams, Senior Associate Architect, Specification Writer at O'Connell Robertson, and Ryan Stoltz, Associate Principal at Structures. All right. Thank you, Chris, Ryan, and Kristina for coming on the show.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, and I haven't done this format before. I've had two people interviews on specific sort of topics, but I'm excited always to try things new. Because I think the topic today, I think it's turning into collaboration, but getting things done that are sometimes difficult to get done in the construction or architectural side because of, change is hard, and new concepts and risk taking is sometimes hard. So, Chris, can you sort of paint me like an overarching sort of what is happening, what your sort of attempt with this project you have, and then maybe Ryan, Kristina can add more to that.
Sure, absolutely. So the three of us, our firms, are all working together for Waco Independent School District and the construction of a brand new elementary school, Kendrick Elementary. And rather than take kind of the usual approaches to concrete, we had some specific goals, two that really come to mind, that we wanted to do better than is the norm. Number one is to be more sustainable. Not just in lowering the embodied carbon of the concrete, but also making really high quality concrete so that the life cycle of that concrete system is as long as it can possibly be. And, stand up to 800 kids running around with, boots and bringing in sand and rocks and all the kind of abuse, that concrete floors might get. And then the other, because it is, public bond, publicly funded project, is be very good stewards of the construction budget. And because concrete is manufactured on site, as opposed to manufactured off-site and then kind of installed or assembled within your core and shell, we wanted to make sure that we were really getting into the weeds on not just new design processes and wayfinding, but also training and education so that we could also lower the cost, lower the schedule, a faster path to tenancy in achieving that lower embodied carbon concrete.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan, in terms of getting something like this off the ground, right? Because everyone wants to do innovative things, but what type of conversation, where did the buy-in need to occur?
That's a good question. So yeah, my role is the structural engineer on the project. So Christine is the architect, her firm, O'Connell Robertson, and I work for Structures, so we kind of come in under her umbrella, and so she called me to the beginning of the project and kind of said, hey, we've got this guy, Chris Bennett. He's a concrete consultant. And I had never had a concrete consultant on our project. I've done hundreds and hundreds of projects and consulted with other people in the industry on concrete, but a specific concrete consultant was kind of a new idea. Fortunately, I'm not opposed to new ideas or too prideful to say, no, I know everything. I don't want this guy telling me anything about what he thinks he knows. So I said, sure, sounds good. The more the merrier. Let's figure this out and brainstorm new solutions. And I knew concrete was in the news. It's talking, there's a lot of talk about how bad cement is for the environment, the need for sustainable solutions. The government's pouring billions into finding these solutions. So there's kind of all this in the back of my mind. Like I know that at some point we've got to rethink concrete. It hadn't really changed in my whole career. It's kind of been the same simple ingredients. Your cement, aggregate, sand, and some water, and you replace some of the cement with fly ash as much as you're comfortable with, but there's kind of limits on what you can do. And we kind of call that sustainable concrete. And there's other innovations in other parts of the country and world, but in our area here in Texas, that was mainly what we would see. So it's kind of, I knew that there was this day coming when I was going to have to kind of rethink concrete. And I was like, hey, we trust O'Connell Robertson, Kristina. We trust their opinions and their views of kind of technical expertise. They think through things very well. So it's like, great, let's go for it. And it took, I think, 4 to 6 months of me driving Chris nuts, asking him questions. I don't just adopt innovative ideas in the engineering front and take that lightly, because I've also seen and heard a lot of bad stories from contractors where sustainable solutions have gotten a bad rap. And you have to be careful. Yeah, sometimes it's marketed very well, and then it gets executed on a project. And sometimes the story is actually, we made concrete a little bit worse, actually, but there was a sustainable component, and that's kind of what the owner's left with. That's the bag we've handed them. And it's like, well, let's see if there's something different. And so through those months of conversations and just pinging Chris and asking questions over and over again, getting comfortable with a new idea, a new way of thinking about concrete, a new admixture, this specific mix, which I won't get too into the details right now, but it made sense to me from an engineering standpoint. It felt better than a lot of the other green solutions that had been kind of coming across my desk. And so we agreed to do early mock-ups. We agreed, kind of implemented some processes, which maybe I'll let Kristina talk on here in a second, because she was very, very much spearheaded that effort, I think, of how to get ahead of it and train people. Right. In this industry, there's so much of a standardization rut. We're stuck in the way we've always done things. Batch plants, concrete finishers, the pump truck operator, everybody that's touching the concrete has been doing it this way for 35 years. Every contractor you talk to, I've been doing it the same way for 35 years. Why would I do it different? And it's like, well, at some point, innovation is going to require you to think about it a little bit different. And you have to have a process and training to get them across the line and try something new. So just like for me, it was asking Chris a lot of questions for 6 months. Then it became the teamwork of figuring out how to get everybody else across that line too. We're not just going to do it how we've always done it. It's not a huge change, but it's just enough that everybody needs some extra training, a little bit extra thought, a little bit more attention. So I'll stop there with those processes. Maybe that's a good segue to pass off to Kristina, because she's very influential in that part of it and spearheading that. So.
Yeah, I think that it starts with noticing a trend. Concrete has been a trend. There's been a lot of pressure in our industry to do something different with concrete. Most new buildings being built involve concrete, and it's the cement that's the source of the concern, as Ryan touched on, and I think noticing that over the years, it's not a new issue. There's a lot of research and a lot of great things to read about it. So if you start now, maybe you'll kind of get your head around it in a couple months. You're not going to pick up on where we're at right away, but it does start with noticing what's going on and listening to and connecting with some experts in the industry and starting to look for opportunities in the work that you have. Research, so noticing research, and then of course the critical identify team members. And what we did was we noticed what was happening with concrete. We had a couple of experiences in a row with this one particular owner, and we knew it could be better. And we knew we had researched enough to know that there were ways that we could implement different strategies, materials. But what we learned was, even when we had all the team members pulled together, and we all were kind of on board, was even the execution became a challenge. And a lot of that has to do with the default settings in the industry. Everyone's been doing this a certain way. Those who run the concrete businesses, a lot of the changes in behavior that happen on site with concrete are dealt with on site, not by the people who are doing all of the research, but by the people who lay the concrete every day. And so we really had to start to connect with all of the team members, including all of the subcontractors and all of the concrete truck drivers, earlier in design, which is unusual. We don't usually talk about concrete during design. I had just related to the team members. Normally, we could have any of the following team members, and I'm going to miss some, but civil, landscape, structural, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire protection, fire alarm, audiovisual, technology, landscape, food service, potentially, laboratory experts, acoustical consultants, theater consultants. There are all sorts of experts, but handling all sorts of specialized construction, and you don't hear anything about concrete in there. And it's one of the drivers for sustainability, and just quality. We haven't really stopped and given it the space and the time that we've given to some of these other experts. And there are expertise out there. So you know, as Ryan sort of touched on, concrete has always been sort of performance driven, with some controls over introducing some new materials such as fly ash to make it feel more sustainable. Um, but it is execution driven. Raw materials are winning. If they don't have the material, we're in a corner. We get a substitution request. Hey, can you use something different because we can't get that material and it's a raw material? That feels very hard to combat at the time when that comes up during construction. So there's those challenges, and then just the well established pathways, from the ready mix practices all the way down to the guys who are on site trying to understand why the concrete isn't curing as fast as they want it to, and start adding materials, adding water. Then the result is not perfect. So what do? We need to mitigate, which means adding materials, adding labor. We're coming back with more, and we've created something very simple. Everyone knows what goes into concrete. They don't understand how it could have become so complex, and we've made it very expensive, and it's still low quality. So this is the issue that we came up against, and this is why we tried to do something different.
Interesting. So basically, when you're about to do something new, and Ryan, you just mentioned a bit about educating yourself, and then figuring out what training needs to go into play, and then looking at all the partners and team members that you have to touch, and then giving them plenty of time to get up to speed and the heads up on everything, and then looking at supply chain, possible issues and mitigating them ahead of time, so that if someone gets uncomfortable partway through, that there's no easy path to bail on this, so that you can make progress forward. Yeah, and I never thought about all the moving parts about getting that first sort of, call it, innovative project done. And I guess maybe you picked the right owner, right? Maybe they've had some success, then maybe they have a vision with it. Maybe their project isn't time sensitive. If there was a delay, then maybe they don't freak out. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
With this owner, we had multiple projects in the same district, and we had an experience, just related to supply chain, that made everyone a little uncomfortable. And I will say one other thing. um, you know Polished concrete finishing, the polished concrete floor finish is becoming very popular, and it has been for years. And it's also been marketed as a low maintenance floor finish. And this is where Chris really has some expertise, and given his background, and where I was able to learn a lot from him. But if people did not like the look of concrete and want that look, then maybe we wouldn't even be paying as close attention to it today as we are on the architecture front.
Yeah, for sure. Chris, you've kind of, I know you know a variety of different things, but you mentioned, sort of, I guess Ryan mentioned concrete consultant, which is new thing. Do you see more of this specialization occurring in the industry to help push innovation through?
I would say, by and large, it's growing. There might not be specific to concrete consultancies. You've certainly got some specialized engineering firms that might offer, say, forensic services, where there's some overlap in uh, uh, different services they're able to provide. But there aren't a lot of folks that are helping engage really early on. Not like, hey, something bad happened, let's find out what it was. It's like, hey, let's talk about it, have really good conversations early, and as much as we're possible, avoid any bad stuff. And actually, let's just focus on producing amazing outcomes. And one of the things that has been my experience is that specific with lower carbon concrete is it's an amazing value engineering driver. But at the same time, it doesn't need to be like it costs less money, so therefore you're getting less. If you're setting up the design and execution process for consolidating, for curing and finishing um, in a very holistic manner, you get amazing concrete. And we're doing some fantastic things at Kendrick. We're saving water, and I don't know if you're aware of this, Tats, but with a lot of your specialty low carbon mixes, the water to cement ratio, how much water you need to use in your concrete is going up. But that is going to create weaker concrete. If you keep on adding more and more and more and more water, it becomes higher porosity, it's more prone to cracking, and the life cycle is reduced. And so you're like, well, that's no good. At Kendrick, we're actually reduced something. Ryan did the calculations. It's about 10 years worth of toilet flushing. So it's a significant amount of water. We are reducing many layers of traditional coatings that will usually be on curing membranes, curing compounds, spray-ons, epoxy skim coats. Even some of the mechanical diamond tooling that's resinous in nature that gets transferred to the floor. We're eliminating not only those mobilizations, driving costs down, but the associated global warming potential of those petrochemical products. So it's really cool stuff. But it didn't start, and I might ping pong this back here to the group, but this is all great, and we've arrived at a wonderful place. But it was not easy starting, and I think we were all kind of pulling our hair out. The estimating wasn't quite going according to plan. People may or may not have been, and there were different projects. Initially, and we kind of got filtered down to Kendrick was the best one. And so we had a town hall meeting, and I think that was a key change, a driver almost, because instead of just trying to decide up on the ivory tower, so to speak, of what needs to happen in the specifications, and then just hoping that's going to transfer and manifest in the real world, we sat down with the local suppliers and with the installers and said, what do you like about it? What do you not like about it? What are you concerned about? So that we could address it, take those concerns seriously. And Kristina, I'm going to punt this one back to you because you were very instrumental in getting the pre-bid mock-ups going, which was kind of a result of that town hall meeting, because there was even further refinement of constructors and suppliers and more education before we got anywhere near bidding.
Right. So on a publicly bid project, we need qualified bidders, and it's an issue when you have a new material that the bidders don't have experience with, the subcontractors don't have experience with. It's also an issue when you are in a very competitive market where everyone's busy. Like they don't have to take this job, right? They're so busy that this comes up, they see something different, and they're going to pass on it. So the benefit of having a construction manager on during design, which we do in most of our projects, and it's to help us keep things within cost and for constructability. And so utilizing those resources during design is important when it comes to this concrete design intent. And what we learned as kind of we worked our way through this project was we couldn't just talk about it because it wasn't being properly priced. And it wasn't being properly priced because nobody knew how to price it. And so we needed the town hall. We needed to get everyone in a room. there were multiple times during this project when there was a go no go situation, and this was one of them. Coming out of this town hall, we had a feeling it was going to be either we're going to move forward or we're going to have to, do what we've always done, traditional concrete, which is what everyone else is doing. But the town hall was really an opportunity, and we really are very grateful for those who did show up. We required anyone who was interested in potentially bidding on the project to be there, and we had probably 10% of who we could have had if they really realized the opportunity. Just because everyone is busy, they would be taking time out of their day to come and sit and listen to a new idea from a design team and an expert, a concrete expert from Portland in Texas. And so, there were all of these little hurdles that could have prevented us from even getting to the town hall. When we did get to the town hall, we did present the idea, and we had been asking all along for this input, but really at that point it was, would you bid this project? Raise your hand, kind of a thing. If you wouldn't bid this project, why wouldn't you bid this project? We had to ask the very direct question because we were coming up on bidding, and we realized we needed to qualify some people. And so we needed a way to qualify, we needed a way to educate and train, and we wanted there to be a benefit to the district. If we're going to bring this new idea, we want all of the potential qualifiers to all be able to get better by attending these training sessions where we're going to tell them or show them how to handle this material, and what to look for, so that they can do like a little bit of a reset on their behaviors and habits associated with those default settings that's related to the way concrete's always been done. And so that was really the motivation to get it. We had to actually do something during design, not just talk about it and review estimates and look at drawings. We had to get everyone together. When we collected information, it gave us a path forward.
Wonderful. I love that. Brian, you mentioned you were grilling Chris for months to get questions, but when you were looking at new things to try, I mean, what are typical things that you like to see to give you confidence in moving in a new direction than you've done in the past?
There's various levels of that research. First, obviously, you look to see if you're the guinea pig. Are you the first? Are there projects? There are other examples? Is this widely known? In this case, this material in our area is a nano-modified cement admixture we were using in the concrete, was kind of new in our area. I talked with Chris, though, and he'd done successful projects in other areas of the country, so I could tell some sizable clients that have used it, so I started getting a little bit more comfortable with it. Then from the engineering side, obviously, I'm digging into test data. I want to see if there's been cylinder breaks. Is there what else does the internet say about this thing? Kind of go and research to see what the engineering community says. I talk with people in my office if they've heard of it. Various levels of interrogation, getting detailed insight. Learning after a while that I could trust Chris. He'd tell me all these things and I'd say, okay, great. I hear what you're saying. I'm going to go double check this. I'm going to go check other references and see that sort of thing. And it just takes time to do that. You're busy. You got all these projects. And that's one thing I'd definitely encourage other engineers in my case is a lot of times we're afraid of innovation and trying something new because it's going to take a little bit more time. Therefore, it's going to take a little more fee. A lot of times we're stuck in this mindset that our company wants us to be as efficient as possible. There's a spec that's set. It's based on physics and proven methods. And the best way to make profit from the profitability standpoint is to just stick with the path. Stay on the beaten path. Don't try something new. If you do, research it a little bit, but if it gets too painful, just stop. It's not worth it. Let's go back to the beaten path because we got to run a business. We got to make money. And at some point along the way, I started just really getting intrigued. I knew the cement problem, the sustainability aspect. I was already kind of wrestling with it. I just hadn't come across a solution to me that made better concrete. I was always questioning if the sustainable solutions were actually a little bit less than normal concrete, and that made it hard for me to back. I was like, I want to save the trees, I want to save the whales, all the stuff that everybody talks about, but if it's going to make the concrete worse from an engineering perspective, I have a hard time putting that on paper. There's a struggle there. And this solution, as it came out, turned out to be using less cement, simplifying the mix. It was just using an increased I guess the cementitious process of how CSH and hardened concrete is formed, this admixture was just kind of juicing it. It was like steroids for the cement particles. So it was easier for me to get on board too as I researched this. It wasn't adding new slag or modified fly ash or calcined clay or other things that really do change the way it acts and hardens and its properties. It was really taking a mix, making it simpler, removing all the extra admixtures, and just kind of giving a steroid, a juicing to the cement particle. And in a way, it made sense to me after I looked into it that it was actually a simpler mix. And the hardened concrete is the same CSH that's been forming and all the concrete I've been specifying since I graduated. So that too for me helped this solution become more digestible and saying, hey, yeah, let's give it a shot. Let's go through with mock-ups where we could always say no. If those mock-ups fail, and the concrete companies that Kristina just talked about training in the town hall meeting, if they can't deliver and the mock-up's a big failure, we can always say no. Okay, we tried it. That was great. We've learned something. For this project, we need to do normal concrete, and we could try again on the next one. But fortunately, the way the team backed each other, supported each other, kind of innovatively came up with new ways, new processes along with this innovative product. It took all of those things to kind of get everybody across the finish line and say, all right, we're doing this on the project. Let's go. There's some pain, some struggle. Everybody had to get over that learning curve, but that's a little bit what the process looked like for me. So education, research, asking for test data, other examples, and then seeing it in place. And again, my eyes were open too when I saw the guys finishing it at the mock-ups, falling in love with it. They said, this is the most beautiful, easiest concrete we've seen. The contractor would go out to the mock-up and he'd walk it every day at lunch looking for a crack, and he hadn't seen a crack in the thing 4 or 5 months. It's baking in the Texas sun and it won't crack. And just things like that. I get little bits and pieces from people that have been doing concrete their whole lives, and they're kind of blown away by the results. And I was like, okay, we're onto something. We've got a sustainable solution, and we're providing better concrete, and it's cost competitive. You usually can never have all three of those, right? It's kind of that trifecta that you usually get 2 of the 3 is what they say. And in front of my eyes, I'm seeing all 3 happening. And I was like, this is how? This is not supposed to happen. Lower cost solution, cost saving opportunities for the owner, better concrete, and it's sustainable. And we're saving schedule and time. Everything was moving in the right direction. So it just kind of kept, I think, the passion, the excitement kept the team together when we'd run across rough obstacles or tough conversations or disagreements, people that were frustrated by trying something new. We all kind of rallied and kept our eyes on that end goal, because we're like, no, this is worth fighting for. And yeah, I think we've done it. We've got a second floor pour coming up next week. And so far the foundation's beautiful. Owner's very happy, and we've got great concrete and great sustainable concrete. So.
Absolutely. Chris, after this project, it's documented more, it goes forward. What are the next step? Obviously, it's still new in the eyes of people. For you've been doing this a while, I think, because I've sat in on one of your other presentations before, but for your point of view, what's the next step with all this stuff?
Well, the biggest takeaway for me, which also turned out to be quite an enjoyable surprise, it was innovation. Anything that's a little different can be uncomfortable, and we had that. But through the mock-up processes, through the town hall, overcoming problems together, what has been really neat. And not that it's been perfect, because it's nothing is perfect, but like all of the AEC team is what I would actually describe as a team. It's not all the time, but sometimes you get kind of the engineers over in one corner, the architects and contractors, and everybody's on the team, but maybe not working as closely together, certainly not just enjoying and having fun. And this project has become very, very fun. And everybody, even third-party testing agencies and other folks that are involved with it, it's become just a lot of fun. And so that's been awesome for me. So to answer your question of kind of next steps, I'd like to see more of this. And I'm actively working not only with Kristina and with Ryan, but with some of the amazing ISDs there in Texas with groups like Brightworks Sustainability to increase adoption and get the message out that low carbon concrete doesn't have to be a pain in the butt. Actually, it can be fun. That learning process, which isn't going to happen if you're on that same, beaten path where there's nothing new really to consider, can be quite enjoyable. We're already starting to work, at least, in Texas with some other school districts. And there's other projects that we're all working on where we're implementing these kind of new benchmarks for concrete to help people keep on those paths. And then I think what's really exciting, and I tell this story a lot. There was a lot that I really wanted from the project. Composite rebar, lower cement. And Ryan was like, well, slow down. We need to meet people where they're at, and let's, any amount of advancing is a win. And I'm glad that we listened to that. But now we have confidence here regionally, where we're going to be able to take even more environmentally aggressive steps, because that confidence, that foundation of confidence is there. And because it's, a public bond, it's a lot easier to share test data and information than it is with, say, a private client. And so that's what's really exciting to me is kind of making ultimately, I'd like to see everybody doing low carbon concrete. Because it's the most economical path and it's the best environmentally. But man, having concrete be less contentious and kind of a little bit of fun, that would be awesome too, if we can spread that spirit.
Awesome, great, Chris. Kristina, any last thoughts?
Just that there's a process that we went through and a lot that we learned, and we've tried to inform a more formalized process for other teams. Meaning, there's this idea of a concrete commissioning pilot program where basically the things that we learned, including the pre-construction mock-up exercises, the training, is all part of the design process, so that you're thinking about concrete from the beginning, but you're not kind of left on your own. Some of the things that Ryan touched on, he can do all the research, he can look for all the precedents, but it's also good to know that during design you're going to pour this material and send it to be tested. And so I think that the commissioning process, which is an emerging idea and it's available for teams, can help to mitigate some of the things that we had to navigate. I would also say that there's a lot of moments in time that feel like no go, because there's a lot of fear of failure when it comes to concrete. It feels big and expensive to fail, and I think some of those fears we can work through if we can talk through it. And so that, again, that commissioning process helps to facilitate a conversation and get people's hands on the materials, so we can get beyond those initial surface level fears, which are based on, I know this guy who used nano, and it was this and that and the other, and it was more expensive, or it was this and it was that. And so the people making the decisions hear certain words and they say no. And when you actually sit them down and talk to them about it, or even better, you let them get their hands on the material, that's how you get through that across that threshold.
Great. Ryan, final thoughts?
Oh, so many thoughts. Yeah, a couple last ones I thought of. One, the teamwork was so important. To have like-minded people supporting each other through the ups and downs of innovation. One term I use is the invisible wall that I've always felt kind of between a design team and a contractor and the people doing the work. And there's a little bit of kind of protection. Maybe contractors don't want you to see all the innards of what's going on and how they make the sausage. And so there's always been a little bit of distance. I've never been invited to go to the batch plant and watch the concrete on the project get batched. Sometimes we just go the day before to look at the reinforcement. maybe we're there for part of a pour, depending on the type of pour, but not really getting into the business of the concrete and subcontractors in their world. So this was fun. Again, it took the right contractor, the right contractor's personality, and the right owner to back us to kind of break through that invisible wall. And I think Kristina, and I really enjoyed that, where we kind of had to get in the contractor's business a little bit more. A little uneasy at first. They didn't necessarily like it, but I think once they saw what we were doing and that it was for good intent and we're really all on the same page, they kind of became more part of the team as well. And it didn't feel like design team and contractor, although we're all working for the owner. There's just some separation there. And it felt like we kind of blew through that a little bit. And I kind of accredit it just to good intentions and teamwork and determination and recognizing what the end prize was, keeping our eyes kind of on the long-term goal and working through each short-term hiccup to keep our eyes on, where we're really trying to get to. So that was big, breaking through that invisible wall. And I think last thing is just kind of the power of the pencil. As a designer, there's some simple changes you can make. You can be implementing better concrete. Like Chris mentioned, this is the first time I've calculated toilet flushes. It's not my usual unit of measure, but I like coming up with ways to understand what the impact was. It's like a single person flushing toilets for 10 years. By choosing this product, that's the amount of water we saved. Water is a valuable resource that a lot of places are hurting for, and it's something where we put a lot of in concrete. So for one elementary school in Waco, we saved that much water, not even accounting for the global warming potential of the cement. That's just a side effect that a lot of people don't even think about. And so again, I think just the power of the pencil as an engineer recognizing, and an architect recognizing what we're calling out, what we're specifying, and what we're deciding to back, how we're using our time and our passions and our energy. Sometimes small things, seemingly small things, can actually have way more impact and than you think it would. And I think they're worth chasing down, finding those small things and going after them with all your heart. So